So it'll probably be a short one today. Charles Bukowski's Post Office. Super short, 200 pages. I've never read Charles Bukowski before. I've heard of him. He sort of know a little bit of his reputation. This is the first time I've read him. I enjoyed the book. I thought it was a really good book. It's really funny, except for one scene at the first where he straight up rapes someone in broad daylight, and she's like screaming out that she's being raped, and he's like, "Yep, I am," which just really weird, but I mean awful, like magnitudes levels of awful compared to the rest of the book, which made it kind of feel out of place, kind of, but also not, because the character is bizarre. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure you're supposed to enjoy the book or enjoy the character. Anyways, it's about this guy Henry or Hank Chinaski. I don't know. Who he starts out 36, and by the end of the book he's 50. Just a grumpy, crotchety old man, but also like such a character. He's so not narcissistic, but like, yeah, no, that's not the word at all. He's sort of self-centered to the point where he's not insecure at all. Like, he'll have women leave him, and maybe he just doesn't love them or doesn't care for them as anything more than sex objects, but he's just like, okay, sure, yep, whatever, and just moves on. Or maybe it's just the way he's presenting it, because it's written in the first person, like him relaying the events. But it's weird. He just tells it how it is, and he doesn't care, and he'll get into fights, and he's a raging alcoholic, and he's just constantly drinking. Like at the start of the book, he's with this woman Betty. They live together. They're not married. It's the 1960s, I think. The book was published in 1970 in Los Angeles, and he gets a job as a post office, like a postman, delivering packages or mail, the letters, and like he just the way he describes everything, from the superintendents to the way things run. Like, I worked a number of jobs like that, and it's just so real, that working class. I hate the term working class. It's lower class. They don't use the word lower because there's the upper class, the middle class, and then the working class. No, you guys are great. You're working. No, it's lower class. We're below everyone else. Anyways, wow, side tangent. But it's very much from that lower class perspective of people just doing whatever they can to scrape by and indulging in every toxic, horrible vice just to get through life. And yeah, so Hank, he's a raging alcoholic. Him and Betty are just drinking nonstop, and he works. He's hungover the whole time he's working, or drunk. But I don't know. It's just funny. Like, he's delivering packages and letters and mail, and people are calling out to him, "Hey, Uncle Sam," and like, because he's the supply for, like, when he starts out, and people are always like, "You're not the regular guy. What's the regular guy?" And he just gets so ticked off from hearing that from every single person. He's like, "What do you mean?" Or people asking him, "Do I have mail today?" He's like, "How would I know if you have mail today? I have no idea who you are. You're a random person. Like, if you had mail, I would deliver it to your house." Like, it's just so real. And like, when he's sorting mail, he keeps getting written up. He keeps getting these "I'm gonna write you up." Well, the boss keeps threatening to write him up, and then writes him up, and he's like, "Okay, thanks," and he throws it out, and then he gets written up for throwing out the write up, and he just does not care. He's so practical, and like, he's sorting mail, and it takes him 28 minutes to sort this tray, and his boss calls him to the side, and he's like, "See that 28 painted on the side of that tray? That means you have to take 20 minutes to do that, or 28 minutes. So wow, I messed that up. He did. It says 23 on the side, so it takes 23 minutes to sort this tray, and you took 28 minutes. So you're putting us all behind schedule, and when we have to work overtime, it's your fault, because people like you are falling behind quota." And he's like, some random person just painted 23 on that. That's all that means. It doesn't mean, like, you can't tell me that this can be done in 23 minutes. He's like, I stand there and I do the work. It took me 28 minutes. He's like, nope, you're over time. I'm going to have to write you up. And he's like, okay, so what if there's one that says 23 minutes and I get it done in 15? Can I take the other 8 minutes and like go to the cafeteria and get a snack? And they're like, what? No, you can't do that. You gotta go back to work. And just like, it depicts so well how sort of supervisors and middle managers in sort of lower class, unskilled jobs are the just, I don't want to generalize, but they're so stupid. And they only got their positions because they were sort of dumb enough to stick around with the job long enough that they sort of got promoted. It's so relatable. I don't know much about Charles Bukowski, but he must have worked jobs like this because it's so real. Even like 60 years on, 50 years on from when it was written. Anyway, so it's this guy Henry Chinaski, and he starts at the post office and he quits it, and then him and Betty break up, and then he like hooks up with random women all the time, and he's so misogynistic and just abuses women and treats them like objects, just totally. He's always describing women in just the most grotesque ways possible, and like I said, he sleeps with lots. He meets this woman, Joyce. Is it Joyce? I don't want to get them mixed up. He meets this girl, Joyce, who's 23, like way younger than him. And she comes from like a rich family in Houston. So they move there for a bit, and he's sort of like the big man on town because they're like, how did he end up with the rich man's granddaughter? And anyways, he sort of runs the place, but then he sort of gets fed up with it. And so they get married, and they move back to Los Angeles, and then she's like, you got to get a job so that they don't think that you're just with me for the money. Like, we got to prove to them that we're still hard workers, even though we don't need the money. So he's like, fine. He gets a job at the post office because someone tells him it's easy work, like as a clerk now instead of a delivery man. And he just laments that because he ends up spending 12 years working at this post office, and he hates it. But he stays there for 12 years. And Joyce starts talking about some man she met, some like kind of like Spanish sort of tall, dark, handsome man that she meets at work, and eventually Joyce gets a divorce, files for divorce with Chinaski because she's in love with this man at work, and he's just sort of like, okay, sure, whatever, and he gets the divorce, and he's like, okay, you keep the house, and I guess I'll take the car, and leaves. Same with when he broke up with Betty. It's very much just a matter of the fact, yeah, okay, I'm out of here. No seeming to doesn't put up a fight at all, and he just moves on from one thing to the next without an issue. At one point, he's a huge gambler too. He's always going to the racetrack to bet on horses, and he wins like a lot. Like, he's really good at it. So he wins a lot of money, and like takes a leave of absence from the post office, and makes a lot of money on the track, and then goes back, and like he sort of plays the system like whenever he has a supervisor he doesn't like one time he writes this huge 20-page report on why the supervisor is genuinely an awful supervisor and so bad at their job, and he gets sort of called into the head office, and they like drag him out like, how dare you insult this man, like he's a great man. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. What's another thing he does where he fills out this huge long 30-page report. It makes it look all legal and fancy. And he's an intelligent person, but just a mess and a real scum of a human being. So anyways, he gets a divorce, then he shacks up with this woman, Faye, who doesn't work, but is a writer and sort of is in writing circles, but they never publish anything, and they're convinced they're going to save the world, and he's like, yeah, whatever. And he ends up getting her pregnant, and they have a daughter, and then at some point they move out, I think, just leave him, and he's just like, yeah, well, sure, whatever. And then there's a time skip where the book is the next chapters are just lists of these citations that he gets and these write-ups that he gets while working at the post office, but they don't fire him for whatever reason. Well, they're desperate for work at the post office, or workers. So anyways, 12 years goes by, and then the very end of the book's kind of strange. It very much depicts a sort of like him kind of losing his mind in a way, not like totally, but just sort of like going postal, if you will, not like on a murder rampage, but he just has this giant party and drinks himself silly and can't remember any of it. And like near the end, there's one point where he's like talking about has a knife to his throat and he's gonna end it all, but then he thinks about his daughter and he's like, wow, she might want me to take her to the zoo at some point, so I guess I'll keep living. And then the very end, he sort of, I thought it was going to end with a suicide, but I guess it couldn't, because he's relaying the story to us, the character is. So it ends with him waking up, still alive, and thinking about writing a novel. So he did. That's how it ends. And it's such he's such an honest character, like brutally honest, which made me think about how we're in a polite society. We're not like that at all. Like, he's just totally honest, and I don't know. It was an enjoyable read, which is kind of weird to say, given how sort of grotesque and crude and raunchy it was. But yeah, I wouldn't mind reading some other Bukowski and seeing what it's like. Yeah, that character is a horrible, horrible person by any standard, but it's almost comedic. Just the way he describes the messed up state of the world, and he's absolutely right. And yeah, just the very lower class setting, and him just like jumping from job to job, and like saying after 12 years at the post office, he still doesn't have a dime more than the day he walked in. It just, yeah. Anyways, that was Post Office by Charles Bukowski.